Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols, the Advanced Protocols Data Project. I am delighted to be doing a topic again. This topic is one that we've covered before, but wanted to circle back to again because it's really fascinating and there's some updates to this story. It's about whether we are living in a simulated universe or not. Now, Dr. Thomas Campbell, a well-known physicist who has worked for NASA, he's worked for a lot of top companies as a scientist. His work is pretty much unquestionable. He's a real hardcore scientist, but he also brings to the table something wonderfully refreshing, and that is a knowledge of the power of consciousness. He believes consciousness is fundamental and plays an integral role in our universe, and that you can use your consciousness to affect the universe, and you can use this knowledge to your advantage. And further, he's also speculated and believes that we live in a sort of simulation. And if you don't know about simulation theory, basically it states that computers are so advanced now and able to run such advanced simulations now that in the future, these simulations will be so advanced that the participants inside the simulation, the player characters and the non-player characters, etc., would not know that they are simulations. They would believe that they are real. And that in the future, there would be many, many, many simulations run by many different civilizations, and therefore the chances of being in a base reality are very, very low. So in fact, there's a lot of evidence to show that this is true, and there's been a lot of evidence from different aspects of cosmology and physics that have come to bear on this. Numerous different physicists believe this cold spot in the universe is indicative that that there is another universe right there, which is indicative of the multiverse, which is indicative of a simulation theory, and so on. Then there's also Dr. Gates, who discovered something really amazing. What he discovered was computer code in the fabric of space-time. And he's a string theorist, and he's detected error correcting code in the fabric of space-time, which is really, really, really cool. A very special type of code that makes sure information that's been transmitted is correct. And he asks, numerous times, he asks us, why would that code be in string theory? Why, unless we were living in a simulation? So it's very, very, very compelling evidence that we do live in a simulation. So Dr. Thomas Campbell did something really interesting. He did a Kickstarter. He wanted to raise $130,000, I think it was. Actually, let's see how much he wanted to raise. He wanted to raise $150,000 was their goal, and they made $236,000 to do these experiments. And so these experiments are going to happen to test whether we live in a simulation or not. But my question to you guys is this: does testing to see if we live in a simulation indicate that if we do live in a simulation, that we're approaching the very end of the simulation? Wouldn't that seem logical? And if you take that same thinking a little farther, if we scientifically determine that we do live in a simulation, will that end the simulation? Since the second we discover we live in a simulation, the test will no longer be unbiased, and the simulation could end instantly. Basically, what I'm saying is it's conceivable that Thomas Campbell and his experiments could shut down our universe. It's a fascinating question. If we live in a simulation, it's not an unreasonable question to ask. It's in fact a very reasonable question to ask. So just thought that was pretty fascinating, gang. If artificial reality survives in the future, artificial realities, even if it was completely non-biological, would most likely want to run simulations, and simulations like this, and simulations to find out things that perhaps it wouldn't find out because it was non-biological. There's a lot of fascinating things to consider with this topic. But I think the most important question is this last one here. If we scientifically determine that we live in a simulation, will that end the simulation since it will no longer be bias? What do you guys think? Much love to you and yours. If I can figure out how to end the program.